Hello, my name is Jingonelli, and for today I'm going to be taking you through bank reconciliation, basically the last minute reading of bank reconciliation for you to get the basics. So before I begin off, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It will bring you some good luck in your forthcoming exams. So starting off with bank reconciliation, bank reconciliation simply refers to the process of bringing into agreement the cash book balances and the bank statement balances. So having known that, I get to look at some of the causes of the disagreements between cash book balances and the bank statement balances. So we get to have uncredited checks. So from the wording itself, uncredited, before I take you into the definition, when you get to hear the word uncredited checks, just know something is uncredited, and you'll get to know. You just get to know that no credit side, but on the bank statement. So if at all there is something which is not credited, like it's having no credit side and it's on the bank statement, that means you'll get to simply define the uncredited checks as these are checks appearing on the debit side of the cash book but without corresponding credit side on the bank statement. So this is how it will simply look like. In your question, you'll be having the cash book and the bank statement. So it will appear to be on the debit side, and when you come to the bank statement of the question, it will be missing. So you can term that as uncredited check. So you go on the credit side of the bank reconciliation, and you include the missing figure, and that's how you'll be able to take care of this uncredited check. So a simpler way of understanding it is no credit side on the bank statement. So that takes me to unpresented checks. So unpresented checks, these are checks appearing on the credit side of the cash book but without a corresponding debit side on the bank statement. Or I can say no debit side on the bank statement. That is an easier way of getting it. No debit side on the bank statement. So usually get you so familiar with these short terms, they'll help you recall this bigger term, and simply you'll come and define, since you have known that no debit side on the bank statement, you'll come and say these are checks appearing on the credit side of the cash book but without a corresponding debit side on the bank statement. And this is how it will appear. If at all you're having a cash book in your question, it will appear on the credit side, and when you come to your question on the bank statement, it will be missing. So you can term that as an unpresented check. So you'll have to go to the debit side, this debit side of the bank reconciliation statement when you're solving it, and you include the missing figure. So that is it. Make sure you get familiar with these short terms. No debit side on the bank statement. So having known that, it takes us to direct debits. So whenever you hear something being direct, just know it's related to the bank. So, and another thing, where usually these figures are missing, like but without a corresponding debit side of the bank statement, where usually these figures are missing, it's where you're going to take them. Like for example, you realize that it's missing on the bank statement. That means when you are drafting your solution, you're going to put it under the bank reconciliation statement, this unpresented check, and it will appear there as your debit. We are going to see that. You're going to be seeing that. Let's continue. So I was dealing with direct debits, whereby with direct debits, they're like deductions by the bank. This is what the bank deducts from your bank account. So they include the bank charges. They can include the standing orders, and with standing orders, these are simply agreements where the current holder instructs the bank to make certain routine and fixed type of payments directly to the payees on behalf of the account holder. So a simpler way of understanding this, you instruct the bank to make a certain routine or make a fixed type of payment to maybe people you're meant to pay. So every, like, at the end of the month, you'll be like, I have to pay my electricity, have to pay my water bills. So you instruct them to always deduct a certain amount every after the end of the month, going to the paying in order to pay for your water bills, in order to pay for your electricity. So that can be a standing order. So having known that, remember with the bank account, for the bank, they always credit, because when you get a message your account has been credited with, it means that your bank account, to you as an account holder, it will mean that your money is increasing. Like the bank account, money on the bank account is increasing, and the bank themselves, they consider it as a credit because it will be a liability on their side. Keeping your money to be a liability to them, because if at all your money is like, they get to use your money, they have to pay you back. So that's why they always say your account is credited with. And when they get to deduct money from your bank account, that's when they consider it as a debit. So for you, for them, it will be a debit on their side, since they are gaining from you. But for you, you'll be losing. You'll be your money from the bank account will be deducted. So this is when the aspect of a direct debit comes in. So direct debit, it deals with a deduction from your bank account. So when they deduct they deduct money from your bank account, that is a direct debit. So I can define this as, still, these are debits that appear on the bank statement without a corresponding side on the cash book. So from the word itself, when you hear direct debit, as long as it's having a direct, just know that is to do with bank. It's appearing on the bank. And where is it appearing? On the debit side, direct debit, as the word itself. So without a corresponding a credit side on the cash book. So this is how it will look like. It would appear on the debit side of the bank, but without a corresponding credit side on the cash book. And I told you where it's missing, that's where you take it. So when you're solving, you get to know that you don't have a credit side. So when you're creating your adjusted cash book, that is where you're going to drop your direct debit. So moving on, so go on the credit side of the adjusted cash book and include the missing figure. So here you will be solving for it. So having known that, we also have a direct credits. From the word itself, these are still credits that appear on the bank statement, but without a corresponding side on the cash book. And this is how it will appear. It will be on the credit side of this bank statement in the question, and on the cash book it will be missing, and it will require you to solve for it. That is by going to the debit side of the adjusted cash book and include the missing figure. So having known that, there's a short format here of an adjusted cash book. It can have a title. You can say Mary's adjusted cash book. You draft it like this. The title can earn you a mark. Then having known that, we get to have the debit side and the credit side. So what you should know here, since we are dealing with a cash book can either have a cash column or a bank column. So for this, we are looking at a bank column. So we get to look at this bank column, whereby you can have this balance. This is what they call a debit balance. So you can have a debit balance, or you can have a credit balance, meaning that since we are dealing with a cash book but under the column of bank, so bank can either have a debit balance or a credit balance. Meaning if it's this side of the, if at all you're having a credit balance, that will mean it's a bank overdraft, and it can also get to be this side. So don't stick to only this, that it would always be on the debit side. It can also be on the credit side. So whenever you're having a debit this side and a credit this side, remember where it is missing. I already told you in the question where it's missing, and we are having direct credits, having like appearing on the credit side of the bank statement, but without a corresponding debit side on the cash book. So where it's missing is where you take it. So it was missing on the cash book, so I get to put it under the adjusted cash book to bring it this side. So when I'm having a debit here, I'll get to have direct credits. Most of the students usually confuse this. They bring the debit side and they bring direct debit, which is wrong. So it's supposed to be debit side, direct credit, and when you come on the credit side, direct debits. And then as you're having your balance brought down on the debit side, your balance carried down obviously has to be on the credit side. So having known that, we go to the format of a bank reconciliation statement. It can have your title, then bank reconciliation statement. It will always earn you mark. It can always earn you a mark in accounting. So balance, then you say balance as per adjusted cash book. So the balance should have gotten from I'm assuming I was having a debit balance brought down. So this balance right here is what you bring this side on the balance as per adjusted cash book, and then it will be positive this side. But if at all you began if at all you had a credit balance and it was a bank overdraft and it was this side, that means the balance carried down, it will be this side. And when you are to present it here on the balance as per adjusted cash book, you will get to bring it, you get to put it in brackets to show that it's a negative. Okay, to put it in brackets. So when you're doing this, you just have to deal with this minus of the figure, then you add the unpresented checks, then you less your uncreated checks, and then you get your balance as per bank statement. That is if I told it's negative here. But if I told it was a debit balance, like the normal balance, like what we are having here, a debit balance, you don't need to put it in brackets to be a positive figure. This positive figure plus the uncredited checks, you less the uncredited checks. Now with bank reconciliation, where you see unpresented checks, they can get to be like your debit side. If I told you are confused on the bank reconciliation statement, which one is my debit, which one is my credit, and when you look at the less of the uncredited checks, it will get to be your credit side. So having known that, the balance as per bank statement, the figure you get here, it will be the figure got should be the same as that of the bank statement. So make sure you note, because this is another way of there's another way of solving for bank reconciliation by starting with the bank reconciliation statement itself, and that is by starting by this figure, the balance as per bank statement, and then you work towards the adjusted cash book. So another thing in your question, when you're confused about this balance brought down, which balance brought down should you bring? In your question, you get to bring. You remember you'll be having a cash book. So the last figure, which is having a maybe balance carried down or a balance brought down, is what will dictate what you will bring here. So that last balance from the cash book you have in the question is what you bring here. So if it's having a debit balance, then you bring it here. It's having a credit balance, you bring it this side. So hope that's clear. Then we are having the clerical errors. They also cause some disagreements. So we're having errors made in recording amounts in either the cash book or the bank statement. So starting off with the cash book errors, so what you should know, all errors that are made from the cash book must be corrected from the adjusted cash book. So let me get to start off with this one, a check. Here I'm taking an assumption you received a check. So what are you going to do when you receive a check? You're going to debit on the cash book, that is the bank column part. But remember, once you write in your cash book, and then you take this check to the bank, they dishonor this check, so it is dishonored by the bank. There are reasons why a check may be dishonored, expired, it may be fake. So read more on that, why a check may be bounced or dishonored by the bank. So assuming those are the reasons and your check is bounced, so remember earlier on you had debited on your cash book, that is on the bank column. So what do you do here? So you're going to just go on the credit side. Remember, in accounting we don't just cross it. You're not going to go on the debit side of the cash book and you cross that figure out. So what you're going to do, you're going to go on the credit side of the adjusted cash book and clear the error by the same amount. What do I mean here? This is what I mean. If at all having your cash book, you had recorded this figure, check number 150 on the debit side, realize that the check has been bounced because of certain reasons of why a check can be bounced by the bank, because it's fake, out expired, out of the then you get to come your adjusted cash book when you're solving, and then you include this figure on the opposite side, which is the credit side. So check number 1, which is 50, meaning this will cancel out with this. This is how you treat it. So that is how you treat a dishonest check when you're the one who received the check. Now what happens when you give out a check given by you? So for you, when you give out a check, remember we're dealing with the cash book under the bank column, and bank reduces by crediting. So you credit on the cash book, that is on the bank column, but remember it's going to be dishonored by the bank. So what do? You're going to go on the debit side, that is the opposite side, on the debit side of the adjusted cash book, and clear the error by that same amount. So this is what I'm talking about. On the cash book in the question, you'll be having a check number 1, but they dishonor it. So you'll come on the adjusted cash book on the other side, which is the debit side, this side, and then you put the check number 150, and it will cancel out with the other one. So that's how you remember. The trick here is a credit side reduces by passing a debit. So I've reduced the credit side, you're passing a debit side, and they will cancel out. So what do I do when I have overstated figures on the cash book, but the sides are okay? The sides are okay, meaning my debit side is having a credit side, but the figures were overstated. What I should note out first, when the figure is overstated, you have to know who has the mistake. Which is it in the bank statement? Is it in the cash book? So usually the mistakes are made in the cash book because of inexperienced employees or accountants you may bring into your organization. It's on rare occasion that the bank makes mistakes, but they also do make mistakes. So I'm going to be looking at the cash book mistakes when it's overstated, and so many other mistakes. But still, you can still apply the same thing to the bank reconciliation statement. If at all you want to correct the bank reconciliation statement, the same way you're going to handle the cash book is the same way you can handle the bank statement. If at all you want to correct things there, and if at all the bank made a mistake and maybe they overstated a certain figure and the sides are okay, but they overstated the figure. So I'm back at the cash book. So mistake is with the cash book. This is the overstated figure, which is the cash book error, which is 220, but the correct figure is 120. That is what the bank statement states. So I get first look out who's correct. I realize that the bank is correct. So I get to know that I must be having this 120. You see it's on the credit side. So on the cash book it must be on the debit side. So I already told you the sides are okay. So what am I going to do? What I'm going to do, I'm going to first know how much is this figure being estimated from this. So I'm going to find a difference. So 210 minus 120. This is what I have done. Go to the adjusted cash book and reduce the debit side. So having known that difference, I'm going to want to reduce this figure so that I can remain with 120 on the debit side. So having known that this figure is being overstated by 90, this figure here, the 120, this side on the debit side is being overstated by 90. Remember, a debit reduces by crediting. I'm not going to come and I cross and I put here 90. I'm going to say I want to reduce this 120. So I go on the adjusted cash book and reduce the debit side by passing a credit. So meaning that I'm going to go on the adjusted cash book. I say, remember this is the difference, 128 minus 120, the difference is 90. So I put here 90. What does this 90 mean on the credit side of the adjusted cash book? It will mean that the debit side has remained, this debit side now has remained, this debit side here has remained with 120 as the correct figure. So that will mean there will be a 120 this side and also 120 this side, meaning I have made these two balance. That is the cash book and the bank statement. So having done that, that is to do with overstated figures on the cash book. when the figures are okay. So what happens when you're having overstated figures on the cash book but the sides are not okay? In other words, you're having a credit and also a credit, but the figures are overstated. First of all, you get to know who is having a mistake. So the mistake is with the cash book. So if the mistake is with the cash book, what you're going to do, you're going to see this one is the one who is correct. So these ones are not correct, and you want a 120 on the debit side. So you go to the adjusted cash book. What the first thing you do is make sure that you clear the error. You clear this error on the credit side. You want to remove it from the credit side. So on the debit side, first clear the error by the 210. So I'm going to come and I'm going to be like, no, with this adjusted cash book, this is not the final thing you should write, but these are steps that can be in your head once you're trying to solve out for this. So first thing you're going to do is take a 210 on the debit side. This will be working somewhere or in your head. That is will depend on how much practice you have been doing. Then after, you do the right thing of putting. So first you clear the error and then you do the right thing. What is the right thing to do? Is putting the right figure. So you still on the adjusted cash book, it will be the first one you say 210, and the second one you put the right figure. Meaning that if you add the 210 plus 110, you're going to get 330. So what are you going to record? So when you're recording, these two is not what you record. This is just like a working of what you driving at what you should record. So what you should record on the adjusted cash book will be just you will say debit side, adjusted cash book, credit side, and you come and put 330. So that within the 330 there is this 210, which cancels with the other previous cash book error. Then it clears it off completely, and then you remain with 120. And that's why now we get to put the total full figure of 330. So that is the reason. So once you're having this in your question, you just come and say adjusted cash book, and then you drop there 330. And this is the reason why you'll be having a 330 this side on the debit side. So now looking at the normal cash book error. Normal cash book error here, the figures are okay, but on the same side. Now here I went with on the debit and also on the debit. Now fine, you're having a debit and you're having the figure, you're having a correct figure this side, because you first look out who has a mistake, and for this case the mistake is with the cash book. And you get to know that when I come to the bank, Mark is having the correct figure, and you get to know that the correct figure is a 50, and also this side 50, but it's on the wrong side. So what are you going to do? Whenever you see something which is on the wrong side, just know you have something has to be cleared, and doing the right thing has to be done. So what are you going to do? You go on the adjusted cash book. First of all, you clear the error. You clear the error from the credit side. This is what I did here. On the credit side, you first clear the error by 50. So you go this side on this adjusted. I told you this is not the final thing, but this is you're working from your head. So you'll be like, the first thing I do, I clear the error, passing 50. It goes to the credit side. Then you do the right thing. The right thing is to do is by putting a right figure. So on the adjusted cash book, you'll be like, the 50 crosses with this 50. And then what is the right thing? The right thing is putting a 50 on the credit side, which is 50. So when you add this to 50 plus 50, you get 100. So that when you come to what to record on the adjusted cash book, now this is what you get to record. You get to record 100. So that within this 100, there's a 50 which cancels with the cash book error, which was on the debit side, and then you remain with the 50 this side, which corresponds to the bank statement, like having a debit side of 50, and then you will be having a credit side of 50 because of this 100, which has 2 50s in it, whereby the first one cancels with the error, the second one which brings in the correct thing. So what happens when you are having understated values on the cash book but the sides are okay? So here still the mistake is with the cash book. The sides are okay, having a debit and also a credit. So what's going to happen? I told you once you're having this, you're just going to go to the adjusted cash book. Since this is 100 and you know this is being understated, it's supposed to be 100 this side, but you're having a 50. Simply just add there the 50, but the sides are okay. So what happens when you're having understated figure on the cash book? You're having understated figure on the cash book, but the sides are not okay. So here the mistake still is with the cash book. So what will happen? Remember, you're having you know that your bank statement is done, which is correct. So you're having a credit and also a credit. So you must make sure that if you're having 100 this side, you must be also having 100 on the debit side, but you're having 50. Remember, it is understated on the credit side. So what you're going to do on the adjusted cash book, I told you when you see the things that which are not on their correct sides, you have to clear something and then do the right thing. So on the debit side, you first clear the error by 50, clear. So you're going to go on the debit side of the adjusted cash book like this, and then you first put the 50 and then do the right thing. The right thing is by dropping 100 onto the debit side. So meaning that the first 50 cancelled with this 50 and it remained plain, and then this 100 is to do is doing the right thing, so that you have a total of 150. And then what you get to record on the adjusted cash book is this: you get to record 150 on the adjusted cash book to indicate that within the 150 there's a 50 that cancels with the error which was on the credit side of the cash book, and then you remain with 100. Hope that's clear, and I hope we are moving on well. So having known that this is what you get recorded on the adjusted cash book. So then we go to the bank statement. What you know about bank statement? All errors that are made from the bank statement are corrected from the bank reconciliation statement. So you do the same the same way we have been handling the overstated figures. The sides are okay and also the sides are not okay, and even our normal bank error and even the understated figures, the sides are okay and also the sides are not okay. Simply, it will just require you to know what is the debit side and the credit side of the bank reconciliation statement, and then you treat them accordingly. If it's an overstated value on the bank statement, you treat it accordingly. I've seen how I've been treating this on the cash book, still with this, the normal and even the understated values. So I'll be having my format balance as per adjusted cash book. It's a matter of knowing this is the debit side where you're having unpresented checks, and this will be a credit side where you're having uncredited checks, and you'll be having your balance as per bank statement, and you'll get half a figure there. So another last thing to look at, these are extracts from the previous month of a certain bank reconciliation. So here you get to see if there are still direct debits or not, or direct credits or not on the new cash book that has been given, that is of the next month after this one, after the previous one. If not, then where so you will check if they were adjusted. So if they are not yet adjusted and they are still direct credits or direct debits, then you treat them under the new adjusted cash book. So this is an example here. What I'm trying to mean. If at all you have an extract from Mary's limited bank reconciliation statement for the previous month, this is what Mary had, and you didn't record the bank charge of 200 and you didn't record the commission of 100, but they were direct debits from the previous bank reconciliation statement of June 2004, in the month of this June. So when your question, if at all they give you a new cash book for the month of August 2014, and you get to look through it and you don't realize that it's not having a direct debit and also direct credit, that is by looking on the credit side of this cash book, and you don't find these two items there, so they are not included, meaning they are still direct debits. So what you have to do, you just go on the adjusted cash book of Mary Limited, that is of that month of August, and then you say direct debit of bank charge and also commission 200 and 100. So and then you treat them accordingly. So same will apply to uncredited checks and unpresented checks or cash and bank errors from the previous extract. If there are still errors, if they're still unpresented and uncredited, you treat them accordingly. It will be like a continuation. So having known all that, the brief summary of bank reconciliation, you can be able to work out a number, and then you go answer or execute this question in your final paper. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe on the channel.